Hi everyone, welcome to a new video. Today it's about illustration, not sewing. So I'm going to share a few illustrations which I'd done previously. So as you can see, these are really bright colors and I've used acrylics while I'm doing them. And this doodling which you're seeing right now, that's actually being done using alcohol based markers. And the issue that I've always faced with using alcohol based markers is a lot of color bleeding. So I thought I'll try these Ohuhu water based markers. So if you see, it comes in a really nice package, not a fabric package, and along with that there's a beautiful set of colors. It comes with an inbuilt swatch card which is really helpful while we're trying out our different colors. So it's actually going to be interesting to do this process. So yeah, if you see, every color has got its own code which is also mentioned on the swatch card, and I'm just going to try out each and every one of the colors using both the tips. One is the chisel tip and also the pointed tip, so we'll start with that. And it's really nice actually. If you see the process, it's quite interesting. I love doing swatch cards personally. It gives me an understanding of the colors that I have, the kind of texture that I can expect while I'm doing them. And yes, I was really particular on checking about the color bleeding issue, because that's something that I've always faced using these alcohol based markers. So thankfully, using the water based markers, there's not too much of a problem. The swatch card is quite thick. I think the paper quality is really good here, and it's maybe around 300 GSM or so. So there's no much of color bleeding which is happening, and yeah, so we are continuing with the process. So usually what happens is, when we use these markers, there's always these issues of overlapping, which is not too much to be seen while we use the alcohol based markers, because they blend well while they sit through. But water based markers, there is a little bit of an overlap issue which I can see over here. Some colors it shows a lot, some lighter colors like the lighter yellows, not so much. But yeah, we have to be a little careful while we use the water based markers, especially if you're someone who does a lot of illustration of fabrics, of textures, of materials, etc. But the color shades are really nice, they're really beautiful, and I can see how beautifully the colors are actually being set right now. And I'm following the same order in which it has come, so I just don't want to like jinx the whole process, because we'll follow the same while we are even choosing our colors for doing the illustration. So I'm also planning to do a little illustration using these same water based markers soon after this, because this paper is really thick, as I said, so there's no issue of color bleeding and it comes out quite nice. But I also want to try it out on a basic sketchbook paper, how it looks. So maybe we'll try out something like, you know, a little bit of a garment illustration or so after this. So yeah, to be honest, one more reason why I wanted to share the process with all of you is because creating a swatch card or a color card is really important for designers and artists or illustrators, because you need to know your medium while you're using them. Even before you're using them, creating the swatch card or the color card actually helps you understanding the real quality and, you know, the texture of your pens and your pencils, etc. So yeah, I'm almost reaching the finish line, finishing with the last few colors, and I've quite enjoyed this process actually, and I hope that you are also enjoying it along with me. So yeah, so this is it. It looks quite interesting. The colors have come out really nice, really beautiful, and every single color now gives me a clarity on how it looks using both the tips. And the plus point that I found is these markers also come with its own printed swatch card, but it gives you this so that you can create your own, so it is much more helpful. Alright, so now let's start with the process of the illustration. So honestly, this is my favorite part, and for doing these base drawings I always like to use an H pencils and not a B pencil. That's what I personally like. The reason being, in H pencils you get a very light outlines, which is really helpful while you have to use colors. B pencils, it's quite the opposite. So basically you get a much darker line. So I want to use always an H pencil when I start. And I've decided I'm going to do a little skirt, basically something like a flared skirt, so that I can actually try to use different kinds of colors while doing it. And you can see how light the lines are. It's actually really light, which actually helps me to see the outline properly. So I'm giving a little bit of gathers and a bit of volume. So I'm trying to use my lines to the benefit. So if you see, I'm just trying to increase the volume over here with just base simple lines, and give the outline in such a way that it actually helps me build the idea of the right kind of colors that I need to use. So since today we're going to do using these water-based markers, I think it's important that we use not just one but a couple of them so that we can see how they blend along. And I like to use a kneadable eraser to remove the extra lines because I'm going to start my coloring process. And the kneadable eraser is always recommended for artists because it does not leave any kind of marks, etc., and it's very clean on your paper, very light on your paper. So I've decided to go with the purple family. In this case, I personally like purple color a lot. So since it's a skirt, I thought of going for the colors which belong to the same family, almost most of them, of course, starting from the light to the dark. So yeah, I'm going to use my swatch card. So this is exactly why we use a swatch card, so you can pick and see how it looks and then choose your colors accordingly. So here are the first two, and then the next one, yes, and I think we'll go for maybe a couple more. Yeah, I think 5. Yeah, that's it. So we've chosen 5, all belong to the same family. I've added a little bit of blue as well because at times we need to give that little punch of a darker color while we are doing our illustration. So I'm straight away starting with the lightest shade of the purple family, which I've taken over here. So yeah, just go around light with the lines and go smooth, and let's try to focus on drawing our lines mostly in one direction so that we get the idea of the the fall of the fabric, etc. And wow, there's no bleeding of the colors, so basically it comes out quite nice. This is the one thing that I think I've been repeatedly telling you from the alcohol based markers. I've always faced this, so this one is giving a much nicer finish. So now I've moved to the next color. Why? Because I just want to give the volume effect. So we are going for a darker color, and here we are giving the outlines again. We're trying to finish it. And now for the inner part, I'm going to use not the chisel tip but the pointed tip. So with the chisel tip is what I gave the outlines because I wanted it to stand out a little bit, and for a neat finish is why I like to use the pointed tips while we are finishing the insides of our skirt. So I'd like to basically distinguish clearly between the light and the dark areas of the skirt so that it helps us plan our colors wisely, because a skirt doesn't look nice if you paint it all in one color. You will have to give the lines in different colors to show that it's gathered and there is a layer, there is a fall which is happening. And again, I'm not changing the direction at all. I'm trying to keep the lines simple, similar, and with a little bit of curves around the hemline so that we get the finish quite nicely. So as I've mentioned earlier, I think it's time that we introduce our second color, a much lighter color which gives the idea of having the light and dark edges of the fabric, and basically the idea of reflection, which affects a lot on fabrics. So we're using darker colors, we're using light colors, especially everything which belongs to the same family again, because that gives a much nicer finish while you're done with your illustration. So I'm going ahead with the darker areas, and especially in the areas where the fabric is folded, you can see on the insides have gone dark, because generally if it's a sheer fabric, and I'm imagining it to be a sheer fabric, it generally ends up being a little more darker on the insides, lighter on the outsides. And here we're painting the waistband with just a tiny hint of an effect of light and reflection. And yeah, we're almost on the finished edges. Again, I'm keeping the lighter areas slightly intense, interspersing with the darker areas. And towards the finish, I think I'm going to use a much darker line to give the outline. So I think this is how it looks. It's quite nice. So I really enjoyed this process of using the water-based markers for making this illustration. I hope you have enjoyed it as well. Do let me know your opinions in the comment section, and thank you so much for watching.